Julius Agricola was a Roman general whose name would forever be remembered as the man who came closest to conquering the wild lands that we now know as Scotland. Although he never fully subjugated the northern tribes, his campaigns into Caledonia marked one of the most dramatic chapters in both Roman and Scottish history. Agricola was governor of Britain during the late 1st century AD, and he was already a seasoned military commander when he turned his attention northward. His goals were straightforward yet ambitious. First, he sought to strengthen Roman power in Wales, which had proven difficult to control. By the late 70s AD, he had achieved this, and soon afterward he tightened Rome's grip on England as well. With these successes behind him, there was only one great prize left unconquered on the island, the mysterious and dangerous land of Caledonia. For centuries, Caledonia had resisted outside control. The rugged terrain of mountains, moors, and forests provided natural defenses, and the people who lived there were fierce warriors known for their skill in ambush and guerrilla fighting. Agricola understood the challenge, but he also saw the prestige that would come with subduing such a difficult land. So he began his invasion after consolidating Roman control further south. The native tribes did not submit quietly. They rose in arms and even managed to launch a surprise nighttime assault on the Legionime Hispana, one of Rome's most battle-hardened units. For a moment, the attack seemed successful as the Roman legionaries were thrown into confusion. Yet Agricola acted quickly and sent in cavalry reinforcements that crushed the ambush and saved the legion from disaster. Despite this Roman success, it was clear the Caledonians were no ordinary enemy. The tribes of the north were not disorganized bands of raiders. In fact, they could gather an army of around 30,000 men, roughly equal in size to the forces Agricola commanded. They knew, however, that the Romans were superior in pitched battle. Their disciplined weapons and tactics made them almost unbeatable on an open field. The Caledonians therefore tried to avoid such confrontations, instead hoping to wear down the Romans with raids, ambushes, and skirmishes in the hills and forests. Agricola recognized this strategy and devised a cruel but effective counter. He ordered his troops to capture Caledonian food stores and supplies, forcing the tribes into a desperate choice. They could fight the Romans in open battle or starve. Eventually, they were compelled to face him. This confrontation came to a head in the year 83 AD at a place known as Mons Graupius. Here Agricola and his troops clashed with a massive Caledonian army under the leadership of a chieftain named Calgacus. Ancient sources claim that Calgacus gave a stirring speech to his warriors, declaring that they were the last free people of Britain facing enslavement by Rome. The battle that followed was brutal. The Caledonians fought ferociously, but the Roman discipline and tactics again prevailed. By the end of the day, half of the Caledonian force was either dead or in flight. The Romans had won another stunning victory, and Agricola had pushed farther north than any Roman commander before him. Despite this achievement, Agricola's glory may have worked against him. Emperor Domitian, ruling in Rome at the time, feared that his general's successes might overshadow his own victories in Germany. In 85 AD, Agricola was recalled from Britain. His departure halted further conquests. Without his leadership, the momentum of the Roman advance into Scotland came to an end. Soon afterward, Rome faced pressing conflicts elsewhere, including wars in Dacia in modern-day Romania. Large numbers of troops were withdrawn from Britain, leaving the northern frontier dangerously exposed. The Roman lines retreated southward to more defensible positions, and the dream of permanently subduing Caledonia slipped away. Part of the reason lay in practical realities. Conquering Scotland promised little reward compared to the cost. The region had some mineral wealth, including silver and gold, and taxing the tribes might have provided revenue. Yet overall the land was not rich in resources. Its rugged terrain made agriculture difficult, and its people were stubbornly resistant. Rome was already stretched thin, dealing with crises across the empire, and the effort required to crush the northern tribes simply did not seem worth the investment. Still, the Romans did not give up entirely. More than a century later, another emperor would try again. Septimius Severus came to power at the end of the 2nd century AD and sought to restore Roman strength. In Britain, he faced renewed trouble from the Caledonians, who launched constant raids into Roman territory. The defenses of the province had been weakened after earlier rebellions, and by the early 3rd century, the situation had become critical. in 208 AD, Severus personally led an expedition to Britain, bringing with him an enormous army, said to number 50,000 men. He fortified Hadrian's wall, then advanced northward, retaking the ground as far as the Antonine Wall, which had once marked Rome's frontier. With this territory secured, Severus looked farther north, dreaming of completing the conquest that Agricola had started over 100 years earlier. But Severus soon learned that the challenges of Caledonia had not changed. The tribes refused open battle, and instead melted into the hills and forests, launching ambushes and cutting off supply lines. The Romans suffered heavy losses. Disease, the harsh climate, and constant skirmishing sapped their strength. Frustrated, Severus adopted a scorched earth policy, burning crops, destroying villages, and slaughtering livestock in order to starve the enemy into submission. The devastation was immense, and some tribes began to sue for peace. Yet Severus wanted more than peace. He desired nothing less than the total destruction of the Caledonian tribes. According to some accounts, he even ordered their extermination. His son Caracalla led further campaigns north of the Antonine Wall, carrying out brutal raids and massacres. It seemed as though Rome might finally crush Scotland through sheer brutality. But fate intervened. Severus fell gravely ill during the campaign. Weary from years of war and suffering from disease, he withdrew to rest, yet he never recovered. In 211 AD, the emperor died in the city of York. With his death, the invasion lost momentum. Caracalla, who now shared power as emperor, saw little reason to continue the costly struggle. He quickly abandoned the campaign and returned south. The dream of conquering Scotland was once again left unfinished. From that point forward, Rome never seriously attempted to subdue the land beyond Hadrian's Wall. Instead, the empire focused on holding the frontier, defending what it already controlled rather than pushing deeper into hostile territory. The Caledonians resumed their raids, but Rome decided that containment was more realistic than conquest. Historians have long debated why Rome failed in Scotland. Terrain was certainly one factor. The mountains, moors, and forests made it difficult for Roman legions to maneuver. Weather was another. Harsh winters and constant rain bogged down armies and ruined supply lines. The Caledonians themselves were a third factor. They were masters of guerrilla warfare, refusing to play by Roman rules, and instead striking swiftly before vanishing into the landscape. Yet the most decisive factor was economic and strategic reality. Conquering Scotland promised little profit. The costs in lives and resources far outweighed the potential gains. Rome was an empire that always had more pressing problems elsewhere, whether in Germany, Dacia, or the Middle East. Compared to these fronts, Scotland was a backwater too stubborn to conquer and too poor to be worth the effort. Thus the Romans settled for the frontier. Hadrian's Wall stood as a monument to the limits of Roman power, a boundary not of stone alone, but of practicality. Beyond it lay a people who refused to yield, and a land that Rome decided was better left untamed. In the end, the reason Rome never conquered Scotland was not that it never tried, but that, despite repeated campaigns, it could not force the land and its people into submission without paying an unacceptable price. Rome prided itself on being unstoppable, yet even the greatest empire of the ancient world had its limits. Caledonia remained outside its grasp, and in that resistance, Scotland preserved a measure of independence that lasted long after the legions had gone.